name's Sophie, this is Books and Things, and today I'm going to be doing my March wrap-up. So, in March I read a total of 7 books. I'm going to be showing you 8 today because I filmed my February wrap-up before I finished the last book that I read in February. So I'm going to start with that one, and that is Animal Farm by George Orwell. I read this on the 28th of February on train journeys to and from Birmingham. It was super good. It was really good. I gave it 5 stars. If you don't know, Animal Farm is about basically a farm with some animals on it, and they decide to band together and overthrow the farmer and run the farm themselves. It's a pretty simplistic plot, but Animal Farm is actually a metaphor for the Russian Revolution in the early 20th century. The characters in the book very easily relate to real life figures that kind of were key people in the Russian Revolution. I studied the Russian Revolution last year in my history class, and I really loved how well this fit as a metaphor. Like, you can very easily pinpoint the characters and who they match in real life. I loved this book. I really loved it. I gave it 5 stars. So the first book that I read actually in March was The Art of Being Normal by Lisa Williamson. It is about 2 characters. David, who wants to be a girl and wants to be called a girl's name and have people call them by female pronouns, and Leo, who has just moved to a new school and really just wants everyone to ignore him. And it's kind of about how they meet and how their friendship forms and how it affects both of them. I really liked this book. It wasn't perfect. There were bits that I thought were a little bit clunky, and I could tell where the plot was going in some places, which I found more than a little bit annoying. But I really liked how developed all of the characters were. Even kind of background characters, I could tell quite a bit about them. Like, that wasn't true for all of them, but specifically Leo's mum and his sisters I could tell quite a lot about as you read further into the book. I gave this 4 stars. I then read Only Ever Yours by Louise O'Neill. This book is about 2 girls, Isabel and Frida, and their last year at school as they're kind of competing to be won basically by the boys that are the same age as them. If you're won by a boy, then you get to become his wife. And if you don't get picked as a wife, you have to become a concubine. This book really dealt with quite a few issues regarding eating disorders, which I found really emotional and really well handled. But obviously that is a really stressful kind of topic if it's not something that you're prepared for. I gave this book 5 stars. I then read The Handmaid's Tale, which Only Ever Yours obviously has a little bit of inspiration from, but they are quite separate books. The Handmaid's Tale is written by a woman called Margaret Atwood. It was phenomenal. It's so good. I have never been more terrified by a book in my life. I gave it 5 stars. It was amazing. The Handmaid's Tale follows a woman called Offred, and she is a handmaid. Handmaid is basically there to give birth and carry a child for a wealthy couple. And the whole reason that this happens is because sometime in the 1970s, America decided to completely rearrange the position of women. They took away their rights to own money, they took away their kind of rights as individual people, and instead made women different groups. So you could be a handmaid, you could be a wife, you could be a Martha who does the cooking and the cleaning of the house. And it's kind of about this dystopian future wherein women are basically slaves. It was mind-bogglingly good and terrifying because it's all so plausible that it's just petrifyingly scary. So if you have a chance, I would definitely pick up The Handmaid's Tale. Do be aware that the first chapter is quite hard to get into. It's got a lot of run-on sentences, but it is worth it. Like, push past the first chapter and it'll be so worth it. But it does take some thinking about because it jumps around in time quite a bit. But so good. The next book that I read in March is called Where Rainbows End by Cecilia Ahern. This is the book of Rosie and Alex, who kind of are best friends growing up, and then when Rosie gets pregnant at 18, she has to stay at home in Ireland, and kind of raise her daughter while Alex goes to Boston and does university, trains to be a doctor. And the whole story is told through letters and emails and instant messaging. And it's the book that Love, Rosie, which is the movie starring Lily Collins and the guy who plays Finnick from The Hunger Games, is in. Came out in the UK like back in September, and I think it's coming out in the US pretty soon. I really wanted to like this book, and I really didn't. I found it hugely irritating in places. The characters were not very well described because it's just written in emails and letters. Like, you don't get a description of any of the characters anywhere in the book. It made it very difficult to empathise with any of the characters or kind of understand their positioning on really anything. I found it really grating, but like it wasn't awful, it just wasn't good. So I gave this 2 stars. I then read a book that I have owned for quite a while, and I in fact hauled it about a year ago, and that is The Accidental Life of Jessie Jefferson by Page 2. This was a really average book, like super average, and in fact it was a little bit less than average, but it wasn't for anything bad, it was just so average. The plotline of this book is that Jessie is kind of dealing with the death of her mum, and she finds out that her biological father is Johnny Jefferson, who is this incredibly famous rock star musician. And she kind of goes to live with him for a couple of weeks and discovers her life as this daughter of a really famous dude. I couldn't relate to most of the characters. Like, I certainly couldn't relate to Jessie. She did not sound anything like me when I was this age. Like, I knew of girls like this when I was this age, but not really. It was just really slightly subpar, so I gave this 2 stars. I then read a book that I don't actually own a copy of. I was in Waterstones, picked it up, I sat down, I read it, put it back, because it's really expensive for what it is, and I wasn't going to pay that much, but I just read it in the shop. And that is Avatar comic, The Search Part 1. This is one of the stories that takes place after the last season of Avatar, which if you haven't watched it, you should. It's a great show. And it follows kind of finding Zuko and Azula's mother. I really liked this. I thought it was really funny. I thought it captured quite well the feel of the TV show in the comics. But it wasn't perfect. It wasn't another series of Avatar, and you didn't get as much humour, I thought, from the comics as you did from the TV show. You also had people being slightly more obvious in their speech because it's a comic and not voice acting animation, which means that you don't really get inflection in tone, so you have to be much more obvious with sentences. But I gave it 4 stars. The last book that I read during March was Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire by J.K. Rowling. This is the 2nd time I've read this book myself, and the 3rd time that I've, read the book once being when I was a small child. I love these books. I will never not love these books. I gave it 5 stars. Hope you guys liked this video. Comment down below what you thought of any of the books that I've shown, or what books you read during March, and I will see you guys next video. Bye!